Have you ever wondered why some seemingly kind and ordinary people are capable of committing acts of cruelty, even atrocities, under certain conditions? What is it that drives a person to cross the fragile line between good and evil? It's a question that challenges our assumptions about morality, character, and humanity itself. We often think of evil as something distant, something that belongs to others, the villains in history books, or the sociopaths we read about in the news. But what if the potential for evil resides closer than we care to admit, perhaps even within ourselves? Renowned psychologist Philip Zimbardo devoted his life to studying this unsettling phenomenon. Through years of research, he came to an alarming conclusion. Under specific circumstances, ordinary people can be transformed into agents of tyranny, oppression, and even brutality. He called this psychological phenomenon the Lucifer effect. Named after the biblical tale of Lucifer, the angel who fell from grace, it explores how context, environment, and power can corrupt even the most decent individuals. To truly understand this, let's travel back to 1971, to the basement of Stanford University. What started as a 2-week social psychology experiment ended in just 6 days, raising profound ethical questions and exposing the dark corners of human nature. It is here that the infamous Stanford Prison Experiment unfolded, an experiment designed to examine how power and powerlessness shape human behavior. But what the researchers found went far beyond their expectations. The Stanford Prison Experiment began as a seemingly harmless investigation into the psychology of imprisonment. Zimbardo and his team wanted to explore what happens when individuals are placed in a simulated prison environment, divided into roles of guards and prisoners. To ensure fairness, participants were randomly assigned their roles, removing any bias or predisposition. The participants were 24 young, healthy, and well-adjusted male college students with no prior criminal records or psychological issues. The basement of the Stanford Psychology Building was converted into a makeshift prison. The guards were provided with uniforms, mirrored sunglasses to conceal their gaze, and batons as symbols of authority. The prisoners were stripped of their personal identities, dressed in smocks with assigned numbers, and referred to only by those numbers. The goal was to strip them of individuality, creating a microcosm of a dehumanized prison system. At first, the participants treated the experiment as a game, but within hours, the dynamics began to shift. The guards, armed with their newfound power, started asserting authority over the prisoners. Small acts of dominance, such as issuing unnecessary orders or enforcing arbitrary rules, quickly escalated into humiliation, punishment, and psychological abuse. The prisoners, on the other hand, fell into patterns of submission, rebellion, and despair. The lines between reality and simulation blurred, transforming this staged environment into a psychological nightmare. What makes the Lucifer effect so chilling is not that evil actions occurred, but how easily they emerged. The guards were not inherently cruel or sadistic individuals. They were ordinary young men who, just days earlier, had been laughing and joking with their fellow participants. Yet, when placed in a position of power, many became authoritarian and abusive. The experiment revealed how quickly power can intoxicate and dehumanize those who wield it. One particularly disturbing aspect was the guards' use of psychological manipulation. They exploited the prisoners' vulnerability, forcing them to perform degrading tasks, such as cleaning toilets with their bare hands or standing for hours in uncomfortable positions. They also sowed division among the prisoners, rewarding good behavior with privileges while punishing acts of rebellion. This tactic created distrust and isolated individuals, breaking down any sense of solidarity. Meanwhile, the prisoners began to internalize their roles. Despite knowing they could leave the experiment at any time, many became so immersed in their identities that they felt trapped. Some experienced emotional breakdowns, crying uncontrollably or refusing to eat. Others resorted to desperate acts of defiance, such as barricading themselves in their cells or staging hunger strikes. The sense of helplessness and despair was palpable, even though the prison was a mere illusion. As the experiment spiraled out of control, one person finally intervened, Christina Maslach, a doctoral student and Zimbardo's colleague at the time. When she visited the prison to observe the experiment, She was horrified by what she saw. The guards had become cruel and authoritarian, while the prisoners appeared broken and dehumanized. Maslach confronted Zimbardo, questioning how he could allow such abuse to continue in the name of science. Her objections forced Zimbardo to confront his own role in the experiment. As the prison's superintendent, he had become so engrossed in his role that he failed to recognize the harm being done. In a moment of clarity, he decided to end the experiment after just 6 days. What was meant to last 2 weeks had exposed more about human nature than anyone anticipated. What drives the Lucifer effect? Zimbardo identified several key factors that contribute to the transformation of ordinary people into agents of evil. Dehumanization. When individuals are stripped of their identities and reduced to mere numbers or categories, it becomes easier to treat them as less than human. In the Stanford Prison Experiment, the prisoners were identified only by numbers, reinforcing their sense of powerlessness. De-individuation. In group settings, individuals often lose their sense of personal responsibility. The guards, shielded by their uniforms and mirrored glasses, felt anonymous and detached from the consequences of their actions. Power dynamics. Power has a seductive quality. It can embolden individuals to assert control over others, often leading to abuse and corruption. The guards in the experiment were given authority over the prisoners, and many became intoxicated by it. Situational forces. The environment plays a crucial role in shaping behavior. The simulated prison created a context in which cruelty and submission became normalized, even expected. The Lucifer effect extends far beyond the confines of the Stanford Prison Experiment. It offers a lens through which we can understand historical atrocities, from the Holocaust to more recent examples of systemic abuse. It also forces us to confront uncomfortable truths about our own potential for wrongdoing. If placed in similar circumstances, how would we behave? Would we resist, or would we succumb to the pressures of power and conformity? Zimbardo's work challenges the notion that evil is the result of a few bad apples. Instead, he argues that it's often the bad barrel of a toxic system or environment that corrupts individuals. This perspective shifts the focus from blaming individuals to examining the structures and situations that enable harmful behavior. While the findings of the Stanford Prison Experiment are unsettling, they also carry a message of hope. If circumstances can drive people toward evil, they can also inspire them to do good. Zimbardo calls this concept everyday heroism. It's the idea that we can resist the pull of situational forces by making small, courageous choices to stand up for what is right. Everyday heroism doesn't require grand gestures or superhuman strength. It can be as simple as speaking out against injustice, offering support to someone in need, or refusing to participate in harmful behavior. By fostering self-awareness and moral courage, we can build resilience against the pressures that lead to the Lucifer effect. The Lucifer effect forces us to confront the duality of human nature. We are capable of both great kindness and unimaginable cruelty. The line between good and evil is not a fixed boundary, but a shifting one, influenced by the contexts and choices we face. As Alexander Solzhenitsyn once wrote, "The line dividing good and evil cuts through the heart of every human being." Understanding the Lucifer effect is not about condemning ourselves, but about recognizing our vulnerabilities and striving to rise above them. It's a call to cultivate empathy, self-awareness, and the courage to challenge systems that dehumanize and oppress. By doing so, we can create environments that nurture the best in us rather than the worst. In the end, the Lucifer effect is not just a story about the darkness within. It's a reminder of our capacity for light. It asks us to reflect on the kind of people we want to be and the kind of world we want to create. And perhaps most importantly, it reminds us that the power to choose lies within each of us.